Hey guys, it's Candace from Beacon Hill Books. I'm here today to talk about a few books that I read from the Walter Scott long list that I'm anxiously waiting to hear about the short list. Hopefully next week they're going to release it. But I've read three books that was on the long list. I had already read two, and so I'm hoping to get to a few more. I really do like historical fiction, even though I know there are problems with the award of the selection process, etc. You know, I still quite enjoy books. You know, these books, most of them I hadn't heard of besides the two that I read. So, anyways, let's just start off. This is the first one I read, and it is Grace by Paul Lynch. Sorry for the glare. So, beautiful cover. It says author of Red Sky and Morning. I had not heard of that. But Grace, I think, was released in July of 2017, and it's 368 pages. And this book, I tell you, it felt very, very long. As Mel indicated, because she did try a chapter tag for this book, and I was like, oh boy. The first chapter is literally 60 pages. It takes a long time, and it starts off in a very sort of abrupt, almost violent beginning. So it tries to capture you right away, but in the middle, it just really slogged for me. It's about 19th century Ireland during the Great Famine, and we follow Grace, who is a younger girl. I mean, it's maybe a coming of age in a way story, and Grace is kind of sort of violently thrown out by her mother. She shears her hair off and says, you know, go get a job, go get money, and when you do, come back to our family. She has many mouths to feed. And Grace has a great bond with her brother, Collie, and she's kind of thrown out, not sure what to do. Collie kind of escapes and goes with her, and they go out on the road. And it's not pretty. It's not pretty. Grace runs, you know, she has to be a man or a boy and find work. She becomes a bandit in some ways. She becomes a few other things. I think that this book could have done with a bit of editing. I think some of the storylines didn't really add much to the story. I really didn't feel like finishing this book. I was slightly depressed reading it, actually. I feel bad saying such bad things about it because it is a historical piece. I think it does bring some things to the table. Maybe if it was shorter, it would be better. The writing is definitely unique and different. It's, again, one of those types of books that sometimes doesn't have the subject in the sentence. So the writing is very clipped and sort of in this type of style that I've seen a lot recently. And basically, I would read this book if you want to continually get punched in the gut. So, yeah, I'm glad it got a nomination, I guess, because I don't want any book not, you know, of a historical piece not to, but boy, that it was hard to digest. The next book I read was Sugar Money. This is by Jane Harris, and this takes place in around 1765. It's a really quick book in terms of quick chapters, and really follows just a couple days where two brothers, Lucien and Emile, are sent from Martinique, and the French sort of father that's looking after them kind of puts them on the suicide type mission to go to Grenada and smuggle back 42 slaves that he claims were really the French's because Britain had taken over Grenada. Emile's sort of the older brother. He sees the danger in this right away. But Emile also, you know, must do what he's told, but he has a old flame over on the other island named Celeste. So I think deep down he's kind of intrigued to see what will happen with that. And then Lucien is happy with his job at Martinique, but he's excited. He hadn't seen his brother, and he also looked up to Celeste. He sees it as sort of an adventure, and you follow these two brothers, and it's really heartbreaking, because the document that the father gives them, he says is official, but what is that going to do really? Yet he wants the boys, to do this secretively, and it's kind of one of those books that you can guess what's going to happen, but you don't quite know the details. And I didn't want to put it down because I wanted to know what happened, how it finished. I was hanging on the edge of my seat. I liked how Harris wrote the book. Also, not only because it was quick chapters, but I like how she used the different languages. I can see how that might put some people off if they don't know. It's like Creole, French, and English. But I really liked it. I think it gave the book authenticity. And I really enjoyed the author's note in the back. It really brought home that this story, how it came to Jane Harris to be written, and it is a true story, and I really loved that part of it. So I recommend that book. I gave it 4 stars. And the last book I read was The Last Man in Europe by Dennis Glover. It was out in November of 2017, and it's 248 pages, so it's pretty quick novel. What a gorgeous cover it is, if you know anything without the glare about that eye. I loved the graphic print of that eye. This story is about Eric Blair, who is the real name of George Orwell, and it starts in 1947, although the story is not in a linear fashion. It starts with Orwell being on a remote Scottish island. He's basically racing to finish the novel of 1984 before he succumbs to death, his ailment of TB. This follows Orwell through his life, and it will start off with the main storyline of the book, but then it goes through and it touches on when he went to when he wrote Animal Farm, which sort of gave him this boost in popularity, his friendship and I don't want to say mentorship, but it was an interesting relationship between him and H.G. Wells, his various romances, when he went to war, of course, politics, family. He has a son, and it really shows how what he wanted to portray from 1984. Yes, it was so popular and this huge hit, but a lot of people misunderstood what his intentions were of the book, and how he warns of this possible future that, given that something like communism and fascism has already occurred, that it can occur again. And he was in the midst of things. He went to Spain as a soldier, and very, very involved politically. And it was such an interesting story. I'd like to reread it. I kind of wish that I had read 1984 first, but I was too impatient to wait. It sounded so good, and it was available at my library, so I really wanted to grab it. I think I will, down the line, maybe read 1984 and possibly read the book again. So if you have the time, or if you have 1984, I would almost recommend you read that first, because there are bits of it that they talk about in Last Man in Europe, of the little snippets of how he put those in 1984. So it was really interesting to me. I really enjoyed Sugar Money and The Last Man in Europe, and even given that, and Manhattan Beach, and the Bedlam Stacks, of those 4, I would probably pick Sugar Money or The Last Man in Europe. I don't know that I can decide right now, and I'm just kind of waiting for the short list before I really give my favorite and what I think that the judges would pick. But so far, I mean, again, I'm not upset that I read Grace, because I think it is a true representation of a starving girl in Ireland, what people will do to eat when you completely have nothing. But in terms of enjoyment, it was not enjoyable to read. So, um, yeah. So, anyways, I'm going to continue. I have The Horseman here. I'm hoping to get to. I don't know if I will. And I think two more at least if they don't make the short list, which will be um, The Birdcage Walk and Miss Boston and Miss Um, Hargreaves. But let me know if you've read any of these or if they sound interesting to you or if you've read books similar to these. And hopefully I'll be posting again soon with some more Walter Scott reads. Talk to you later. Bye.